episode 122 of 5 Drinks to Midnight. Another show we bring the questions, guests bring the drinks. We try to wrap up before midnight. It's a noisy one here downtown New York. But today we are talking to a true legend, Gerard Garland from Keeper's Heart. But before we do, like and subscribe, hit the bells, the whistles. Let's go in the Dead Rabbit, talk to Gerard. Gerard, thank you so much for joining me. 5 Drinks to Midnight, 5 drinks, 5 questions. Thanks for the invite to the Dead Rabbit. How are we doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Look, I love New York, and it's always great to see you when I'm in town. We always have a good time.
We do.
Yeah.
We paint the town red, as they say. So, I guess our first question right off the bat is, what are we drinking first?
So what we're going to drink first is Keeper's Heart 10-year-old.
Okay.
That's our first drink. We're going to go up in style, so an intensity of spirit.
Okay.
So that we'll be able to appreciate each whiskey. If we started off in a cask strength whiskey, we wouldn't be able to appreciate something more delicate and elegant. So it's the most elegant, delicate. It's also, I suppose, the whiskey that has mellowed out because of the age of it. It's 10 to 14 years old, and then with an 8 to 10 month finish in Malaga wine cask. So it's a delicious single malt whiskey.
Excellent. So are we going to do a neat pour of that, or are we having cocktails, or we're double fisted, or
we're going to intersperse this with cocktails? I suppose it's just enjoying it, showing the versatility of the Keeper's Heart family, and talking to you about a new style of whiskey that was
love it.
It's doing great things.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go.
All right.
So we'll start off with the 10-year-old.
Okay.
It's 86 proof, and as I said to you, it's aged in mainly refill bourbon, and then this Irish triple distilled single malt then is finished in Malaga wine casks.
Okay.
Yeah. So
awesome.
Have a little sip.
Very nice.
So it's very easy to, I suppose, it's very familiar as to a whiskey drinker, particularly an Irish whiskey drinker. And I suppose this is my comfort zone because this is where I've come from.
Yeah.
And now I work for an American whiskey, so that's all good.
Cheers.
Cheers. So you've lovely hints of raspberry on the nose, but that distinct kind of cereal note that you get from an Irish single malt.
Oh, it's so nice.
It actually won at the San Francisco Wine and Spirit Challenge. It won Irish Whiskey of the Year this year.
Okay.
So
awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That's awesome.
So let's have a little sip. Sláinte. It's very drinkable. Loads of flavour in it.
That's crushable. That could be very, very dangerous.
Yeah, and again, if I hadn't told you this was 86 proof, you wouldn't believe me.
No, you would not know that at all.
It's very elegant, very delicate. The finish on it is very fruity as well. There's a lot of spiciness up the front from an alcohol point of view, a little bit of wood spice in the middle of the palate, but then it's quite soft on the finish and very, very drinkable.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so
cheers.
Again, cheers. Yeah. So out of the Keeper's Heart family, this is the only Irish whiskey that we currently have, and it's a permanent member of the Keeper's Heart family. I suppose the guy that I know the most from Keeper's Heart is Brian Nation.
Yeah.
Good riddance to Waster.
So I worked with Brian in Irish Distillers for 2 decades, and basically Irish whiskey we're both very familiar with, and that's I suppose why we're starting on it. But it is also the most elegant and lightest of the whiskies that we're going to be trying today as well.
Oh man! Well, again, it's marvelous. It's really it's really fucking good, and it's just I can't wait to keep going up. So it's going to be awesome. I guess, like you said, you got 2 decades worth of experience. You are a true fucking legend in the whiskey world. So I guess question 1 is rather simple. It's always the same. It's an origin story, but how'd you get started in the whiskey business?
Yeah, so I was working in So I left college. I started working in a packaging company, selling plastic forks and bottles and plastic hoods, or coating for pallets and things like that. And that wasn't very exciting. That didn't really excite me too much. So I got into telecom, started working in telecoms, selling internet connectivity, back in the late 90s, which was, at the time, it was a booming, believe it or not, a lot of businesses were only getting the internet or getting routers and things like that. So I was selling all that sort of stuff. I did that for about a year, and it was hard cold sales, and it was a great learning curve for me, but I wasn't passionate about it. And I went for a walk with my father one day, and he said to me, what are you interested in? That's what you got to do something. You got to be getting up every day and do something that you like, that you're interested in. And I said, well, I'm fascinated by drinks, the drink industry. I was fascinated by the brands that existed in it. And I got out the yellow pages, or the golden pages at the time. I suppose, again, talking about the internet, you didn't really search. You got out in the drink industry section. There was about 8 or 10 companies, and they would have been the likes of Guinness Ireland or Edward Dillon, or all these companies that are well known in Ireland. And I applied to all of them. Sent my resume by post, like a hard resume to them. And one company replied, and that was Irish Distillers. And I ended up working for them. And at the time, I could not have told you one thing about whiskey. I had no idea how it was made. And, all that I knew was I was familiar with the brands that Irish Distillers made. And I started working with them, merchandising, and then got a small territory. My first whiskey tasting ever was in 2001, and it was in September 2001 in the Rochestown Park Hotel in Cork.
All right.
And it was with some guy called Barry from the distillery.
All right.
So Barry Crockett.
I was going to say, there's only one guy from that,
And my first tasting was at the time our focus was really on Bushmills, believe it or not, because that was owned by the company. And it was Bush 10 and Bush 16. And Bush 16, I think, had just launched.
Okay.
So this was a new product. And then we did a strange whiskey called Redbreast.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah. Jameson 18-year-old, which had just launched as well. And at the time, and then the last whiskey was some Middleton Very Rare.
Yeah, never heard of that one.
Never. 2001 vintage. Yeah. I wish I still had a bottle. That'd be worth a few.
Yeah. We'd be working for you.
So my first whiskey tasting was with arguably a legend of Irish whiskey, and I didn't know who he was. Yeah. So I was sitting beside him at lunch, chatting away to him, and we're still friends now. It's amazing. Every time I meet Barry, I have a really, quite a friendly, close relationship with him. He's a lovely man. Has time for everybody, and he's written a great book.
I was going to say, did he give you a copy of his book?
No, I bought it.
Oh, right.
I bought it from Cork University Press, and he's going to sign it for me. So I was emailing him there just before Christmas, and he's going to sign it for me. I'm really looking forward to that. I did an event for the Cork Whisky Society just before Christmas, and basically he was doing a book signing at that, but I forgot my book, so I couldn't get it signed. But it's a piece of really well researched. When he left, when he retired, he decided to go and do a archivist course in University College Cork. Okay. And he had been researching for years, as you do in your spare time.
Right.
He had been researching historical documentation that related to whiskey production, particularly in Cork. And I suppose the result of that, or part of that, is this book about Wise's distillery in Cork. So, so it's really interesting. But so that was my first whiskey tasting. So the only way was down.
Down. Well, I was going to say, you're sitting there next to a legend. I met Barry once when I did the academy, and he was outside of and I shook his hand, and I don't think I've washed his hand since. It literally, it's just meeting.
And very unassuming guy, and Brian Nation obviously took over from Barry, and again worked in Middleton, and I was the spokesperson as such for the guys in Middleton and the brands when they were obviously too busy expanding the distillery and all that sort of stuff. So I became quite close. They trusted me to speak on their behalf. So I became quite close to Brian over the years, and conversely then Kevin when Brian left. And I was down at Cork Whisky Fest last March, and it's taking place again this March.
Yep.
Laurie O'Dwyer and his wife Sonia run that. It's great, a great festival if you're ever coming to Ireland. And there was this guy on the street, Brian Nation, but he was wearing a Keeper's Heart logo, and he's with the O'Shaughnessy's and also our commercial director Betsy as well. They were all there, and I met them on the street.
And Paddy too, I bet.
Paddy as well, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and we were chatting away, and then Brian just said to me, "I want to talk to you," and I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." And he goes, "I'll give you, once this is all over, I'll give you a call." And basically, he called me up and said, myself and Patrick Caulfield, we want you to come work for us. And I said, wow, that was really flattering, but I'm actually very happy. So they weren't taking no for an answer, and I met him again then at Whisky Live Dublin in May.
Okay.
And they offered me a job, and the rest is history. I spent about 2 months kind of detangling myself or deciding that I was going, and Irish Distillers very nicely said, we'd love you to stay, but I really, for me, I always wanted to be part of something that I could feel I'm in at the ground level.
Yeah.
This is going places. They've built a great team, the O'Shaughnessy's around. They built an amazing distillery in Minnesota, which I visited in September, and I'll be going there again next week.
Yeah.
And
it's cold as fuck.
it is. Well, you're from not a million miles away. It's. I have yet to experience a Minnesota winter.
Well, you're gonna get.
I'm gonna get it full force.
Yeah, you're gonna get it next week. So yeah.
And then I've decided I'll go to Boston after that, and then Chicago. So more freezing places.
Minnesota be cold as shit. Go to Boston, you'll warm up a little bit, and then Chicago be fucking freezing again. So
we had a discussion earlier on in a pub we were in Manhattan earlier on today, and the guy was saying he goes, "You're not ready for this." He goes, if you think you have enough layers on, put on more layers.
You don't, yeah.
So like as you know well from living in Ireland yourself, Tim, Ireland, basically the climate is the same in August as it is in December. So you don't get big variations. You might get a little bit colder or whatever, but it's usually in and around the kind of 80s to 90s all the time. So it's not really that cold.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, that's so it's a pretty stable climate, which makes it great for maturing whiskey. So that was a big revelation for me, that they have to add some heat to prevent the whiskey freezing, which is insane. Because
that
how cold it gets. So I was like, what? The barrels freeze? They're like, we have to. So they have like low voltage, rads that just bars that just keep the temperature, above, below like minus whatever Fahrenheit.
Just to keep it from freezing over.
So that was a revelation for me. So that's the first time that I've come across that. Obviously in the summer they don't do that. So I started in the 17th of July, so I'm only 6 months working for them. But there are people that I've worked with before, and a lot of new people. But it's I'm going to big myself up here, but I'm very well known in the Irish whiskey industry. But in America, no one knows who I am. No one knows me. Well, you know me.
Well, people downstairs had no idea who we were when I was here to meet. So
So like who?
Who?
So I suppose it's a great challenge for me. So I go to, when I've done events here, but people who are into whiskey, people who are in the whiskey industry, like they're the same over. As in, we all have a passion for it. We've fallen into it for whatever reason. Many of us, and it continues to grow. So this is just, again, that's why being part of Keeper's Heart, being part of something that's at the ground level, I can take ownership of a lot of expansion and growth and maybe new product development. And
that's awesome. Well, all right, that's question one. So train's leaving the station. We're empty on that one. So. Question two, drink two. What are we drinking?
Okay, number two, we're going to, it's an American whiskey, but it's an American whiskey that is a blend of both Irish whiskey and American rye. So it's the Keeper's Heart Irish and American. This is also 86 proof.
Okay.
But you can see natural colour because there's 47% of this whiskey is American rye. That's aged in virgin American oak, so there's no need for colour addition to it. The Irish whiskey is pot still and Irish grain whiskey, both aged separately in refill American oak barrels. So barrels that we used to make American whiskey and then used to make Irish whiskey. And then we ship we disgorge or dump the barrels in Ireland, and then they're shipped out of the barrels in IBCs over to Minnesota, where they're blended together with the American rye whiskey. Okay. So it's
I love that pot.
Yeah, it's great. I love the bottles. They're quite I love the kind of firm shoulders. Yeah, you know, they're like kind of strong shoulder.
No, bottles. I love the bottle. Like it. Yeah.
And it's a cork. Look, everyone knows that pop, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that pop. But you'll notice when we get on to our next whiskey, which is Irish and bourbon, another blend, but it's a much higher proportion of whiskey that's aged in virgin American oak. So you see a big jump up in colour in the next whiskey, and it's much more influenced by the American whiskey and American wood. Whereas this, I think, is a really great example of the balance between the two. You know, the Irish pot still is 50% malted, 50% unmalted barley. So basically giving you that pepperiness on the front of the palate and the creaminess that's caused by the pot still, that distinct, I suppose, extra dimension that's unique to pot still whiskey, that lovely kind of velvety texture across your palate. So it's really familiar to you if you're an Irish whiskey drinker, you know. And it's funny because so many Irish people they think that's whiskey, and then when they try something else, they're like, "Where's something missing?" And they don't know. It doesn't actually really dominate the flavour too much, but it gives an actual mouthfeel, which is unique to it. I think what the grain whiskey does here is that the lively, I suppose more loud American whiskey in here, the rye, is spicy by its nature, but it has a lovely sweetness to it, kind of a cream soda sweetness that you'll notice at the back. But there is great balance between the two. And what's the grain doing? The grain is like that Lego brick that
brings everything
two together. So it's a really good platform. Without it, the two of them go off in such different directions that they don't work together. The grain really is that little link that it's not necessarily adding a huge amount of depth of flavour or, you know, giving a certain amount of mouthfeel, but what it is doing is it's just adding a bridge between the two different styles of spirit. Okay. So let's have a little nose with it. Like, it's really familiar. You're getting, you know, vanilla sweetness, but if you're like, oh, Irish whiskey, you know, the rye doesn't really jump out, the spiciness doesn't jump out here. It's because it is toned down by the pot still. The pot still is kind of putting a nice kind of softness around that rye. It does appear at the back of the palate, but it's not immediately apparent on the nose. But it's really familiar kind of richness, honeyed vanilla, you know, but not too much, not like a bourbon vanilla, it's vanilla. That's and nice. You can get the grain as well, you can get the cereal note from both the rye and the barley. Yeah. So have a little sip, sláinte. Cheers.
Love that thing.
So initially you get a bit of pot still spiciness, there's an effervescence from the grain, but that creaminess immediately on the palate. It transitions in a balanced way. Cereal notes coming through there. You get that heightened sense of sweetness, and then that spice from the rye kind of kicks in. It's also the American oak as well, because it's all American oak. It's refill and virgin. The American oak being the virgin American oak with the American whiskey, and the refill with the Irish whiskey. So there is that wood spice that is quite subtle at the back, but it's there. I can feel it now. And tannin, nice little bit of tannin.
Yeah, no, it's nice. This is really, really good. Combine two great things, Irish whiskey and rye.
Yeah, so, you know, Dave Perkins, you know, and Brian Nation put this whiskey together 4 years ago. Okay. Now it's they've been distilling in the distillery for over 2 years now. Okay. But they put this together about 4 years ago and then launched it just over 2.5 years ago. And you know, I think they've done a great job. Two guys that are, one from obviously an American whiskey background and one from an Irish whiskey background, bringing all that knowledge and putting it into a bottle. And I think this is a no nonsense whiskey that is, you know, I'd say great for breakfast.
Yeah.
You know, breakfast whiskey,
Yeah.
evening. But in all seriousness, it's very versatile.
Yeah.
So it works great in cocktails or elongated with, say, soda water, or even apple juice, freshly pressed apple juice. It's very nice. You get that kind of appley note.
Okay.
I think on the palate, the honey really complements it. And then in a cocktail, I like this in a sour. This particular whiskey. But again, it's up to you.
All right.
It works well in the Manhattan as well.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, maybe I'm just a sour fan. I like
I mean, you got me intrigued with the apple juice. So like that's gotta be
freshly pressed apple juice. So nice, highball, fill it full of ice. A good 2 ounce, 2 ounce pour into it, and then elongate it with about 100 to 150 ml of freshly pressed apple juice, and garnish with a nice green apple slice. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, it's a lovely summer drink. It's when it's warm outside. I think it works really well. And
that'd be amazing.
It's a nice drink.
All right. Well, so question 2.
Yes.
We talked a little bit about it in question 1.
You didn't even ask me a question, and I went off.
It's amazing. I love it. Going from a large corporation to basically a startup.
Yes.
And being new into that startup. Can you tell us a little bit, like, pros and cons of that kind of jump, and like how's it going, and is it kind of what you expected, or is it tons more than what you, either way, like negative, positive, or like?
I won't lie to you, it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, I bet.
Okay, so I had come from a job that I had done for a decade in that particular advocacy role and representing those whiskey brands from the amazing distillery in Middleton, and also you had all of those structures that had been built up around you to support you in that role. So I had a team of people working for me, amazing guys who are still there, working away and spreading the good word. But then when I came to Keeper's Heart, one, I'm the guts of 5,000 miles away from the distillery in Minnesota, and the second thing is I'm 6 hours in a time difference away as well. So you're they hired me because I had the experience and the contacts and the relationships in Ireland and a certain skill set. Now it sounds like
But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you.
Unlike Liam Neeson, I didn't have to reinvent myself. I just moved to a company that is, as you said, a startup. It's a family-owned business. Yeah. The O'Shaughnessy's or as we say in Ireland, O'Shaughnessy's are a very proud Irish-American family, and I suppose the whole concept of the brand was to have their Irishness and they're Americans, are very proud Americans, and they want to have both of those infused in a whiskey, and they decided that they would go for like the number one distiller in the whiskey in the Irish whiskey industry and go after Brian. And then I'm very lucky that they felt that I was a person to represent the brand both in Ireland and in the US. Nice. Also, Brian can't be out traveling all over the place because he needs to be in the distillery, working.
Making it successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, Brian's very clever. He hired distillers like Kate Douglas to basically another person with amazing knowledge of distilling, and so he's not every day distilling there on his own. So he's got a team. He's 2 other distillers that he's hired to help take the share the workload, not take the workload, share the workload with them. So from my point of view, I don't have a team.
Okay.
I don't have any option to hire anyone. So at the moment, in Ireland, I'm doing everything. I'm working with the distributor, I'm calling into accounts, I'm doing training with people, training bartenders, training people in liquor stores. I'm doing consumer events, I'm standing at barrels in liquor stores. I'm working with Dublin Airport to try and get it going. I'm out and about in all the societies, sweating all those relationships I used to have. And then I'm very lucky then to come over to work with my colleague Laura in New York, or my colleague Mike in Chicago, or Taylor in Minnesota, and I'll support them in their role, going in, getting new listings or doing events, or speaking to people like yourself in order to get the word out about Keeper's Heart Whiskey and tell them to come and visit our distillery in Minnesota. Yeah.
What was the because you said that they kept going after you. Like, did Brian like threaten your family? Is that why you switched? Again, joking aside, but what really, like, I mean, was it just the new challenge, or was it just, you know, something, like you said, be really part of something from the ground up? Like, was that kind of the main thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always been, you know, the face or representing brands, but I didn't. These are brands with over 100 years heritage, and you know, I just you know, a long line of people, and you really feel that when you're working with amazing brands like the Spot Whiskies or with this. This is not make it up as you go along. This is quality. You know, everyone that they've hired are industry veterans, or people that know what's going on. You know, it's qualified all the actions that we're taking. So we're not like, we talked about we've seen other newer whiskey brands, and there are people who are, I originally was a stockbroker and now I'm going to have a whiskey brand. I made a lot of money in the stock market, and then they come into a bar and they're like, great, I got it listed, I got it on the back bar, and I gave it to them for free. And you're like, yeah, but it's not sustainable. You know, the brand will be sitting there in 3 years' time. We want to work, we want to put it in the right places, work with the right people, and, you know, both create knowledge about the brand, you know, awareness of the brand, and also to get the on-premise or get bartenders behind it, so they want to pour it. They want to tell customers about it. They want to say, hey, you know, what are you drinking tonight? Oh, I don't know. Well, hey, why don't you try this? This is a new whiskey, and that's how it gets going. Get it moving. And I suppose that's when I come to the US, that's what I'm doing. And you know, I live in Ireland. I don't live in the US, but I'm very lucky. Like, I was thinking, over the last 12 months, I've been in New York for a month. Yeah. Which is insane, you know, like when you think about it. So I'm like you might as well just rent an apartment across the street and then you'll be good to go. I couldn't afford it. So, no. So your question was like even since I was here in October, the team has done it. You know, we have got that one. Yeah, we got Laura. So we've got Laura working in New York, and she's got tons of experience, amazing contacts, and the difference I see from October to now is night and day, and more. But we all feel we're all ambitious. We all want to get it going, but it is about putting it in the right places. We can use that experience to be more targeted, and you know, if you go in like with a scattergun, you work and you get it dropped. You know, you incentivize salespeople or whatever. It'll, as I said, it'll go in and sit in the back bar, and then we'll all be looking for new jobs in 2 years. So and I think I'm already getting huge satisfaction from the growth of it. You know, I believe in it. I believe in the distillery. You know, it's tangible, and when we start releasing our own whiskies from September 2025 onwards, that's going to be a game changer. I think that's going to create huge awareness of what did you call them? The bottle nerds or cork dorks, cork dorks. They'll certainly they'll be more switched on to it then, because they're like, oh yes, And what mash bill is this? What fermentation yeast strain are you using? You know, and it'll interest people from that end of things, and then that legitimizes what you're doing, as well as just you know, you can have Brian Nation attached to it, you can have Gerard Garland attached to it, or you can have you know Laura here in New York, who you know people know and they trust what she says. But at the end of the day, if the stuff in the bottle doesn't stand up, you know, they're going to give you a twist. And then they're going to go, hey, you know, I gave you a twist. I can't help you out anymore. And with this, I think it's going to be it's going to be the opposite, because people will believe in it. And when they try it, they're sold. They know. That's good.
Well, I will tell you, I think that the rye is probably one of my favorites. So like that is like, it's super. As you can see, I finished it quickly, and now, but I'm
just talking too much.
But so off of that, and then to get this, just to take the piss out of Brian a little bit. But how do you how's it, like, again, working with Irish Brian and now American Brian, since, you know, like he says, elevator instead of lift,
sidewalk,
and he's you know, a baseball fan
trunk.
now.
I'm just going to get my bag out of the trunk instead of the boot. And we were only talking about the words, like, it's amazing. He does do that. And then you know, Paddy Caulfield, who we
Yeah.
work with as well, like Paddy's from Leopardstown, around the corner from me. But Paddy's been here. He's married to his 2 kids are Americans. He's married to a lady from Ohio, who works for a.
He was American when we worked together with Power. So
exactly. So you know, but he's here a long time. So Paddy's very, I suppose, got a lot of the vernacular.
He's more American than Irish now.
No, it's very hard. That Cork twang is very hard to break. You know, I do find that he slows down when he talks to Americans, but when I'm talking to him, he, you know, the high pitched kind of singing Cork accent comes back, you know, and all of the slang. But he's over and back all the time, you know. So it's not like that. He's like his kids. Definitely, you can hear their and his wife's teaching in the middle school in Minnesota now.
Okay,
you know, so like they live here now. This is where they live.
Yeah, they're Americans.
They've a beautiful house in St. Paul, and you know, he's a 10-minute commute to work in a lovely big Jeep Cherokee.
Nice.
You know, he's got, you know, so he's gone all in.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. That's question 2. So super easy. Awesome. All right. Question 3. Drink 3. What are we drinking?
Drink 3. We're gonna drink Keeper's Heart.
Okay. Irish
and bourbon.
Okay.
So again, it's pot still and Irish grain whiskey, aged in refill barrels. But this is 59% of this whiskey, so let's say 2/3 is bourbon.
Okay.
And the bourbon is obviously aged in virgin American oak, and it is much deeper in colour, Tim, as you can see. Because of that, one, it's 2/3 American oak instead of half. And also, I think this is more in style that will be familiar to an American whiskey drinker.
Okay.
So it's got a great mash bill. It's a high corn mash bill. It's a really, I think what the Irish whiskey does is tone down a bit of the wood spice.
Okay.
And also the youth and liveliness that you find in a bourbon.
Okay.
Is toned down by the Irish whiskey.
Okay.
So it works really well together.
Nice.
So let's give it a go. Let's give it a whirl.
Yeah.
It's also, just to point out to you, it's 92 proof.
Oh, very nice.
Instead of instead of 86 proof, I had to. Sorry, obviously, it's like, as you know, in Ireland everything is in ABV, alcohol by volume, and it's also the other thing as well is like, even when I come here, like Fahrenheit, I have no idea about Fahrenheit, and I have to literally go to my phone and figure out what temperature it is and all that sort of stuff. But it's so I have to switch between the two the odd time, and sometimes I suppose I get a bit of a brain fart and have to think again.
No, it's jumping from C to F. It's a hard one because talking to like people that are Irish, and I'm like, oh yeah, it was like 80. I mean, like 17 for you guys. Like so like.
But even measurements like ounces, we're all in milliliters, we're in kilometers. So it is. I suppose it's an easier way because it's more precise, because it's a smaller, more detailed measurement. But obviously in the US it's all ounces. You know, and even at that, like when you're looking at bottles of whiskey, I suppose these are all 700 milliliters, which is now going to probably become the standard in the US, I think, in the future. But with drinks, I think there's a whole book to be written about measurements and the different measurements used in different countries. You know, so it's really quite fascinating. And I think really it's the US is an outlier in the measurements that they use for liquids, for weights, for you know, measuring things. You know, a lot of the world took the French's, you know, kilometers, meters, and all that sort of stuff, and it is, I suppose, a more universal, transferable thing. And with drinks, they're international, and from my point of view, I think it's just, that's why I switch between them, or I have to stop sometimes and make sure I'm saying the right thing. It's
going to get harder for you too, because going Midwest, you now got another measurement, which is the glug. So like, it's the noise that the bottle makes when you pour. So it's glug. Like, is it 2 glugs, 1 glug? So it's glug glug. Like that, then you know you're good. So like, when you pour, like, so the Midwest is a glug. So like, you got a whole different measurement there. So like,
you look at the horror on my face. I never even heard this. Yeah, and you know what? The Midwest is so different. The United States is like, it is one country, but there's so much diversity and difference in culture and the way people do things. Like, really, like Minnesota is night and day with New York. It's obviously still the United States, but it's very different culturally, you can see people, they act in different ways, they talk in different ways. It's refreshing in many ways because I suppose you can find somewhere in the US that fits your idea of what the world is. And you can go and live.
That's So, all right, so
okay. So we got as I said, 92 proof, natural color again, but much darker. As you can see.
Very nice.
So have a little nose of it, Tim. Okay, it's all that familiar stuff. You got the wood, the almost bitterness from the wood, but also the sweetness, the vanilla, all those caramelized wood sugars from charring the barrel. Again, it's refill American oak with the Irish whiskey, but this is obviously virgin American oak with the bourbon. In order to be bourbon, it has to be, and it is 2/3 bourbon, so much more an influence from the American oak and the American spirit as well. So it's all stuff it's very familiar to you. Have a little sip, don't you?
Very nice. That's nice.
But you get that pot still spiciness that you normally wouldn't get with a bourbon. There's a lot of sweetness, but definitely you're getting that extra level of the creaminess.
Yeah, I was gonna say like that. You're really getting that. Yeah, the creaminess of that.
But you get that spice from the wood kicking in midway through your palate, but it transverses very nicely after the creaminess, and I suppose as the sweetness kind of dissipates with just a bit of saliva diluting it. The length is much longer than previous whiskey, but again, that's the vanillic acid in the American oak that is driving that length, but also the liveliness from the spirit. The American whiskey is definitely more lively. You get much more dryness than the last whiskey on the palate, and that's again the spirit driving that, which is actually really nice. It's more so. It makes you want to make another bit, but you can see it works really well.
The cocktail,
Like there's a lot of people say, you should only use a high proof rye in an old fashioned, the purists, right? But with this, I suppose our rye offering is half Irish whiskey, so it doesn't have the same impact on it. But I think the bourbon, you're adding sugar to a sweet spirit. It's layers of sweetness, different sort of sweetness, but I think it works really well.
It's like this. I don't need, a nice cube of this and even just a little bitters, and you got yourself the old fashioned. You don't even need a little simple.
Orange twist.
Yep, done.
Knock it in. You don't need any to let the ice do the dilution. And enjoy it.
It's fucking nice.
It's a great whiskey. It does. It's in Ireland it sells probably 2-1 against the rye.
Okay.
And it's a crowded market. It's a different market in the US. It's almost 96% of all the whiskey sold in Ireland is Irish whiskey. So you're fighting a hard battle trying to sell an American whiskey in Ireland. And obviously you have the big guys there, the Jim Beams and the Jacks and all of that. They dominate. They're trying to take a slice of that 4% of the market with the Scots, and they're fighting with the Scots as well. So it is a bit. But when it does come to the case, I think this is going to be so superficial. People buy with their eyes. The darkness about the spirit and also the black label. Black and gold works so well.
It's so sexy. It is. Really that is really nice.
Yeah.
All right. So question 3.
Was that not question?
No, we haven't even we're just talking about the whiskey and everything.
We've been here for 5 hours.
I know.
Done anything.
It's usually what happens when we drink together. Mm-hmm. So, question 3 comes from our friend Rosie, our mutual friend Rosie.
Love you, Rosie.
Also, just to clarify, this question is usually we call the talking shit segment because we've had 3 drinks, so we're a little warmed up and a little looser.
Well, she knows both of us very well.
Very well.
Well capable.
And so, first I have to say, you're in a safe space, so please don't, But Rosie wants to know, what controversial point of view do you have about Dublin and Cork?
All right, okay, here. Well, I'll tell you one thing, right? I have lived in both cities. So I lived in Douglas and Cork in the 1980s, and my dad was working then there for a distributor of industrial kitchen equipment, ranges that were made in Texas called Garland ranges.
Okay.
Right? Crazy.
Right.
His surname is Garland.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with us. I wish we owned the corporation that made them. And he sold those into hotels. Like every time you drive by a hotel, he'd be like, sold a kitchen in there, sold a kitchen there. Yeah, so, and I lived there, went to national school there. I moved back to Dublin, I had a Cork accent. It's well gone.
Yeah.
Because, and I, before iPhones before, like there's no recording, so
Yeah.
I think we had a Video 8 camera. I don't think we had any sound on it. So basically, I've lived in both, and although Cork people would like to believe that Cork is unique and so different than Dublin, there's a lot of the same similarities. You have different stratas of society, you have disparity of poor and rich, and but Cork is really special from the point of view in that it's so small, and it feeds down into the city. It's like a basin.
Okay.
So it's built on a marsh. Cork itself means marshy place, Corky. So it's built on that, and there's all its series of islands that the city is. It's really, so the city itself is very, very special, and it's a big county as well. But they're very proud, very independent. Like they even have T-shirts that say, they describe Ireland as Cork and not Cork.
Right, yeah.
So, but
the true capital.
The true capital. But why do so many Cork people live in Dublin? That's what I want the answer to. If Cork is so great, why don't they go there? I love Cork. But I think I have a friend, Larry O'Dwyer, I mentioned earlier, and he almost it's like therapy for him coming to Dublin. It's like, I don't feel as much hatred as I did yesterday for Dublin. Like they really just. There's also a rugby team called Munster Rugby.
Okay.
They're Limerick and Cork and Tipperary, Waterford, Kerry. It's that part of Ireland.
Okay.
And County Clare as well, and they hate the Dublin, as they call it. So Leinster is the team in Dublin, which is the province up there, and there is this huge rivalry. It's absolutely massive, and that feeds into that in sport. Then there's Gaelic sports as well, like hurling and football. So this hatred is expressed in many ways, and in the US you have teams that it's huge rivalry, but it even transcends that.
Okay.
So what can I say? I'm part of the peace process. I'm trying to build I suppose a link, but it is Ireland's second biggest city.
Yep.
And you've Apple are there from the 1980s. You have Facebook and Google, and it's quite a wealthy city. And it's got a really bohemian feel. It's got a huge amount of international people living there as well, from all over the world, because of the corporations that are there. So you have a big diversity of an amazing, like Michelin-star Japanese restaurants there. You have Spanish people who set up like tapas bars. So it's I think it's always had more of a Southern European vibe to it than maybe Dublin. Dublin is very cosmopolitan as well, and again, you have huge amount of international people there, but it's 2 million people living in the metro area, so it doesn't have the same. Cork is very it's smaller, more compact, great bars. They have their own like stout even. Like Beamish. Obviously huge distilling tradition, brewing tradition. It's I think. What can I say about it?
I think you nailed it. I don't want you to get in too much trouble. I don't want
So I feel like I'm an ambassador for the peace process between Cork and Dublin.
A Nobel Peace Prize for you. So
drink
cheers.
Drink that.
Question 4, drink 4. What are we drinking?
Drink 4 is the same whiskey that we just drank.
Very nice.
But at barrel strength.
Excellent.
So it's cask strength.
Fuck yeah.
Basically, the last whiskey we tried was at 92 proof, so it's reduced down with reverse osmosis water to basically make it a consistent product. So when you come back to Irish and bourbon, 2 years time, well, hopefully 2 weeks time, you'll get another bottle, you'll find out it's the same thing. And the idea being that's what you use, so you know what it is. But the fun around cask strength whiskey is you're getting to try it at as God intended. Yeah. So there's no adulteration, there's no reduction. So basically it's blended together, and whatever strength it comes out with, that's it. This particular whiskey, this bottle here, is from the first batch of it. Okay. So we only launched it before Christmas. Okay. Right here in this room.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the one that we were here for.
It's 118 proof.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, so but delicious, dangerously drinkable. Yeah. So what it does is the flavors, the intensity, the spiciness, it's all concentrated down. I often use the word distilled, but that just kind of confuses things.
Yeah,
but it's basically it's more concentration of flavour because you're not getting that water reduction. So have a little sip, my friend. Colour wise, in my own head, I think it's darker again, but I don't think that's the case. But it has a lovely richness of colour. It's really apparent.
Fucking gorgeous.
Really dark in colour. Again, all American oak. 2/3 of this is virgin American oak, so you're getting a huge impact from the wood on the palate. But sláinte, friend. But 118 proof. It's not coming out and punching you in the face at all. But it's definitely got more flavour, as in more concentration of flavour than it at 92 proof.
So have we converted you in? Like, are you more of a proof chaser? Are you enjoying the higher proofs, or so are you more still back down to the?
So what I love about the Keeper's Heart family is that they're all different.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even though this is the same whiskey that we just tried, it's like a totally different product. This is delicious, but this is a whiskey you'd have maybe, you'd sip over it, you'd take your time. The last whiskey is, it's versatile. You have it in a cocktail. I'd be just drinking this neat. I think it's got loads of flavour. It's something you could sit over, really enjoy it. I'm not saying you couldn't make it like a lovely high proof old fashioned out of it, but I think what I like about, say, a 92 proof or 86 proof or you've got something that you can come back to all the time. You can enjoy it. It has more versatility, I think, from that point of view. So I absolutely love this whiskey, and I think it is a real diamond within the Keeper's Heart family. But is it one that I'd be drinking all the time? No. And I think the great thing about the range is you can find a whiskey for a particular moment, particular drink, and that's the fun with the range.
Nice.
It's much spicier. Much spicier in the front of the palate. It's just as creamy as before. The sweetness, the bitterness from the tannin, because it's more concentrated, it's actually cancelling out that extra sweetness, but you definitely know it's sweeter. Yeah. But it's cancelled out by the bitterness of the tannin, and the wood spice is much more intense.
Yeah, you get it really good in this.
It's mouth-watering as well.
Yeah, this will again, if you got a cold or anything, you just sip on that for a while, and you'll be good to go. And
we're both recovering.
Exactly, and
this is doing wonders for me.
And if it doesn't heal you, who the fuck cares? You'll be drunk, so it doesn't matter. So
you should always drink responsibly, Tim.
Always, yes, as it says in our corner.
Absolutely.
All right. So, question 4.
Yes.
Been in the business for 20 plus years.
Yes.
Been named brand ambassador of the year a few times.
Yes.
Proudest moment in your career?
Oh, okay. It's a personal one though.
Yeah.
So, I worked on a whiskey with the Licensed Vintners Association in Dublin. It's one of the oldest trade groups in the world. It's been around since 1815, I think. So, or 1812. Yeah, 1812. God, I don't even know myself. So it's been around a very, very long time. So it was the Licensed Growers and Vintners Association. Licensed Grocers and Vintners Association. And my great-grandfather, Martin O'Byrne, was the life secretary of the Licensed Vintners Grocers Association. So to be working on a whiskey that was 1817, that's the year it was, sorry. So it's fine. Have we been drinking or?
Yeah, maybe. That happens.
So Martin O'Byrne, who's my maternal great-grandfather, my granny's dad, he's like, they wrote a history book about it, and he's there, like, and I'm like, oh my god, there's my great-grandfather. And I said it to the historian who did the launch with us about it. He's like, oh my god, he goes, that's crazy, is that why you're involved? And I was like, no, I only realised that's what it is.
Awesome.
So I had this real connection with the whiskey that launched, and for me, I think when it comes to anything, when you have an emotional connection or a familial connection with something, you really, it drives resonance to it. Okay. So for me, I think that was my, from a work point of view, I thought that was, but it was really personal to me. It wasn't, no one else really could share in that.
No, but that's that's your proudest moment, and that's the question. So.
Yeah, but I tell you, being nominated and then winning Irish Whiskey Ambassador of the Year That was huge for me as well. But I never expected it.
Yeah.
Whereas the other thing, I was kind of like, oh my god, this is like, I felt a sense of history. Certainly, I think I'd love to throw my hat into in Ireland anyway as American Whisky Ambassador of the Year in this year's awards, and then conversely in the US. I'd love to get a bit more known in the industry in the US, and people recognize who I am. So yeah, that's my thinking of my proudest moment. Very personal, but not. But
no, that's awesome. And again, that's the question. Question 5, drink 5.
Drink 5.
What are we drinking?
We're drinking 2 drinks because extra.
Yep.
So I came all the way from Ireland, and I brought a sample from our distillery in Minnesota.
Okay.
And I also brought a beer from my local brewery.
Okay.
In Newtown, Mount Kennedy.
All right.
And they're called Wicklow Wolf. Yeah. So Wicklow Wolf. So it's a really amazing independent craft brewery, and I live on the Wicklow border in Dublin, and it basically is what I would call a mid-Atlantic IPA. It's really easy to drink. It's very hoppy, grapefruit, citrus, all that sort of stuff. But it has a lovely, I think it works really well in a Boilermaker with a whiskey. And the whiskey is finished in barrels that have been seasoned with Fulton IPA.
Okay.
So it's a different IPA, but I thought it would be interesting to bring in a bit of an Irish beer with an Irish American whiskey.
Awesome.
So yeah, let's launch it. So here's the beer first. Let's launch it. It's super light, drinkable.
That's fucking good.
Yeah, it's really good. You really get the fresh fruit, the grapefruit, and
damn. All right.
It's delicious.
Yeah, it's
I hate beer, so this is damn good. So
well, I just called it a whiskey, so but it's really easy drinking.
Wow.
It's not like a beer. I think it's like a cocktail.
Yes. No, honestly, like it's almost like literally, if you gave me that over ice and said that here's a highball, I would have fucking believed you. Like honestly, I would not have said that that's a beer. So that is really fucking good.
Yeah, it's amazing. And my friend Dave O'Sheehan, he basically he introduced me to this, and like I'm not a massive beer person, but I don't, if I am going to drink beer, I usually would drink really ordinary, mass market plain beer. But with this, it's really approachable, really easy to drink, and if you want to have a whiskey with it, it's really simple. And the thing with a Boilermaker, people are like, oh, what's a Boilermaker? Well, basically, just to explain to people that don't know, it's basically when you get a whiskey and a beer, and you just basically drink some whiskey, drink some beer. And there's no right or wrong way to do it, but it's often good to get something that complements. They complement each other. So this is Irish and American rye. So this is the white labeled whiskey here, which is half rye and half Irish whiskey, and then it's placed into those barrels that have been seasoned with Fulton IPA. So when you nose it, you can get a hint of that citrus hop note to it. It's not overwhelming because it is a whiskey at the end of the day, so there's loads of vanilla and as we were talking, honeyed type notes to it. But there's definitely more of a fruity character on the nose from the beer. So let's launch it. It brings the sweetness off in a totally different direction.
Yeah, that's a little weird. And not in a bad way. But
no, it's totally different. But it's also 110 proof.
Okay.
So our Irish American is normally at 86. So 110 proof. These are produced on a regular basis as distillery exclusives, and also we do bottlings for liquor stores around the US, or hopefully I'm going to bring them to Ireland and do them in liquor stores in Ireland and other exclusives. But we're starting up in new stuff. So again, Brian is bringing his experience of beer finishes, of wine finishes, to Keeper's Heart, and then the way we're getting people to try them, it's almost like a straw poll or market research. We release them mainly through the distillery store in our distillery in Minnesota, which happens to be right next door to a brewery as well. And we're partnering with a brewery, and we're going to produce some amazing collaborations over the next 12 to 18 months. And this Fulton IPA I think is amazing, and it's just something really interesting. And we've maple syrup finishes, Sauterne finishes. We've, oh my God, like just anything you can think of, because we're trying everything, you know, Merlot, or as we call it Merlot.
Okay.
No, you know, Chardonnay, you know yourself.
Yeah,
so just trying wine finishes, trying everything to see what works. And I just thought it'd be really interesting to bring an Irish beer, which has, you know, someone smuggled it into the US. I don't know who it was. It wasn't me. It must have been Laura.
Yeah.
And it's great to share it with you today.
All right. So question 5.
Yes.
Comes down to the flip of the Whiskey Wednesday coin. You can flip it. You can spin it. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to answer. The coin gives us the answer.
Okay.
You do not have to answer.
Okay.
But so I'll let you pull that out.
Okay, let's go. Nice coins, by the way, Tim.
Thank you.
Is this a new one?
That's a new one.
Yeah, it's
so,
really nice.
Yeah. So
They are just it's a work of beauty.
Yep. All right.
Okay.
So I've been told that after a few drinks, you like to break out in song.
Oh no.
So question 5 is,
Yeah.
will you sing us a song?
So I have done. So in my head, I think I can sing.
Okay.
Okay, because I've got the gap in the teeth. You know, people for some reason think I'm related to Judy Garland, which
All right.
is it's not even her real name. It was Judy Gump, which was her real name, and I can't sing, Tim. But I think I can sing. So what I'll do is I'll flip the coin, and if it says yes, hell yeah.
No, fuck yeah. We're adult, Joe. You can say it. Yeah.
Okay. Or fuck no.
Exactly.
I'll do whatever the coin tells me. Okay.
So
Okay, let's go.
He can't post it.
Yeah. So it says fuck yeah.
Oh, I can see the battery is gone in your camera.
Yeah.
Oh no. Let's launch it.
So again, thank you so much for joining us today at Dead Rabbit.
One drink. Yeah.
Or no, I mean we can do any. Yeah, I don't know. We got so many in front of us.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining us today at the Dead Rabbit. I really appreciate your time. Again, till we can drink together again, because I know what happens when we drink together.
We have a great time.
We do.
Yeah.
So cheers to you.
Cheers, Tim.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Let's launch it.